Dirt Tracks is sponsored by Polaris, think outside. Yamaha, revs your heart. And by Kawasaki, let the good times roll.
The Sportsman 570 is one of Polaris's best-selling ATV models, and for a very good reason. Its ratio of performance to value is off the charts. That's also one of the reasons it's one of Dirt Tracks TV's favorite models as well. The original version of the Sportsman 570 has remained unchanged for 8 years, which in Polaris time is a long time. So it was no surprise for 2021 when they released the new Sportsman 570 with a whole bunch of new features and an aggressive new style. Today I want to take a look at both vehicles, the old and the new, talk about what's different, what's new and what's been updated, and go into more detail than we did in our walk-around video you might have seen on YouTube, and figure out if the new one is really worth upgrading from your old Sportsman. The most obvious difference between the old and new Sportsman is the styling. The new Sportsman has an updated, aggressive look that's not too aggressive that it's going to intimidate your new ATV buyer, but is definitely aggressive enough that current Sportsman 570 buyers are going to be a little bit jealous. Just like with the last version of the older Sportsman 570, this new version actually comes in 2 different platforms, focused mostly on the front suspension. This version, the Trail, has a double A-arm front suspension setup, but the lower-end models have a McPherson strut front suspension setup. Obviously, both of these particular ATVs have a double A-arm front suspension system, but if you look closely, you can see that the new version isn't the same as the old version. The new Sportsman 570 includes arched lower A-arms for better ground clearance. The difference in the front suspension of the new 570 goes deeper than just the lower A-arms though. There's also geometrical differences in the suspension design, as well as ½ an inch more wheel travel due to where the upper shocks are mounted. Another difference in the front end that you won't see unless you look really closely are the suspension pivot bushings. The new bushings are automotive style in that they're rubber and allow the A-arm to actually float a little bit at each suspension mount. This gives more durability, better ride compliance, and less noise when things get dirty. One of the biggest complaints consumers had with the original Sportsman 570 was where the battery was placed. It was on the bottom of the chassis, basically between the front wheels, where it was constantly getting covered in mud and soaking wet. For 2021, Polaris has completely fixed this problem by moving the battery up in front of the headlight underneath the front rack, where it's very well protected and extremely easy to access. As with all things in life, sometimes change requires compromise, and in this case, moving the battery underneath the front rack required a compromise in under-rack storage. Now, the old one had 6 liters of capacity, the new one has only 5. All of the missing capacity is from right here in the middle. Now, Polaris says it's not really that big a deal because on the original one, this section of the under-rack storage was actually very shallow and not that useful. And in my opinion, they're completely right. The last 2 benefits of moving the battery up underneath the rack are A, they could use a larger capacity battery, which gives you more cranking amps and more ability to run more accessories. Also, because there's no battery located in the bottom of the frame like it was before, Polaris was able to beef up the frame just slightly for a little bit of an improvement in durability. Obviously, the new Sportsman has a very different set of tires than the old one does. These Duro tires are actually an inch bigger than the old ones and have a much more improved tread pattern that's going to give you tons more traction. They're also a 6-ply tire instead of a 4-ply tire for more durability. Polaris has had one of the best engine braking systems in the industry for many years, but some people have complained that on the Sportsman 570, it was just slightly more aggressive on D-cell engine braking scenarios. So for 2021, this new Sportsman 570 gets a slightly improved engine braking system that's a little softer when you're off throttle from higher speeds. A couple things Polaris didn't change on the 2021 Sportsman 570 is the ergonomics and the switchgear. And I think that's great because this vehicle has always had near perfect sit-down and stand-up ergonomics, and the switchgear has always worked flawlessly. The right side throttle control is excellent, the left side switchgear is great too, and I especially love this little winch controller here that's so well integrated into the switchgear. It just looks so perfect and just looks like it was made to be there instead of an add-on after the fact. Another little secret of this gauge pod right here, it does include the same gauge as the last year's version, but it also includes a 12-volt charge port for maintaining your battery with something like a battery tender. Now, something I learned about this charge port is that it not only works to charge your battery, but if you have an adapter that has the same plug, you can actually power things from this 12-volt charge port, as well as this 12-volt outlet that is common on all ATVs.
Dirt TRAX is sponsored by Princess Auto. Make it work.
Mechanically, the rear end of the new Sportsman is essentially identical to the old one. There really aren't any changes in terms of suspension or suspension design or the trailer hitch or anything like that. It's the same. However, there are a few visual differences and a couple features that are missing on the new one that were present on the old one. The new Sportsman has new taillights, and while they do exactly the same thing as the old taillights, they do it while looking a lot better. One thing you will notice that's missing on the back of the new Sportsman, though, is the rear storage compartment. And this is something after my walk-around video that many of you said you wish wasn't deleted. And finally, the rear rack on the new Sportsman is very different from the old one. It includes a whole bunch of extra tie-down locations and accessory mounting locations, as well as some other design features that you notice right away. We've covered a number of things on this new Sportsman that show without a doubt Polaris listens to their customers and the things that they want, the things that they need out of their ATVs. Some of these things are the battery being moved up higher, the improved engine braking system, the 6-ply Duro tires with more traction. But one thing they did to the new Sportsman that I think is absolutely genius and something everybody appreciates is this. Removable front grille that allows easy access to your radiator for cleaning. And this is a big one for anybody who rides in the mud. Anyone who rides in the mud knows once your rad gets muddy, you don't have very good cooling and you can cause overheating. And oftentimes radiators are located in specific areas that are next to impossible to get to properly clean. This is a genius idea. It's not a new one in the industry, but something that proves Polaris knows how their customers use their vehicles and is giving them features and benefits to make that easier. Now that we've covered all the changes and improvements Polaris has made to the new Sportsman, there is one question that absolutely must be answered, and it is simply this. Is the new Sportsman better than the old one? If you own this version of the Sportsman 570, is there enough reason to sell yours and upgrade to the new one? And the answer to that question, in my opinion, is yes. When it comes to ride quality, the new Sportsman is a definite improvement. It's not a huge improvement, but it is an improvement. The front end does ride more plush, and it is noticeable right away. In terms of handling, also the front end is a slight improvement. The geometrical changes that Polaris made do make a difference. Ergonomic-wise, there really isn't any difference at all. They're exactly the same, and that's a very good thing. You won't have to relearn how to ride the new Sportsman, you'll feel right at home on it. But it's a lot of the little things that, in my opinion, make a huge difference. The engine braking, for example, it's much improved. It's smoother, it engages smoother, and it just makes the vehicle more pleasurable to ride. The tires as well are more durable and get better traction, and because they're taller, they give you slightly more ground clearance. If you do decide to upgrade from your old Sportsman to the new one, or if you're shopping for a new Sportsman 570, I have a piece of advice. There are a number of new Sportsman models. A few of them have the single A-arm McPherson strut front suspension, and a few of them have this double A-arm front suspension. If you're gonna buy a Sportsman, buy one with the double A-arms for two reasons. First, it rides and handles better. And second, the increase in price to buy the upgraded model with the double A-arms also includes a whole bunch of other upgrades that you may not notice right away. The difference in price is negligible when you consider how much more value you're getting by upgrading to the higher end model. This new Sportsman 570 isn't just better than the old one. It actually makes a statement about Polaris that I think is really important. Polaris listens to their customers. They strive to give them exactly what they want. And I think if you're shopping for a new ATV, this is a very good reason to look at a Polaris.
Dirt Trax is sponsored by Shock Strap. Start strapped, stay strapped.
The time of the year has come where many of us off-road enthusiasts have to switch gears and get ready for the barrage that winter's about to throw our way. But don't worry, there's plenty of jobs for your ATV or side-by-side during those cold winter months. Obviously, plowing snow is number one on the list of tasks for many, and I'm lumped into that group. This year, we have a remarkably capable, and let's be honest, really comfortable Ranger NorthStar Ultimate, with full cab heat, power windows, a big stereo and subwoofer, and Polaris's on-screen adjustable plow control that actually allows you to tune the winch to respond to your shifting when plowing snow. Well, I've got it easy this year, but like always, there's a few areas that I think I can improve. I know the Ultimate is pretty high-end, but hey, this is Dirt Trax, and I know how to accessorize a ride. While there isn't anything to add inside of this cab, on the outside of the Ranger, there's a couple areas that I can shed some light on, quite literally. Light when plowing is a huge benefit, and the LED Ranger headlights do a great job of throwing light. However, more light when plowing is always welcomed, especially if the snow is powdery and the wind is blowing. Utilizing a 32-inch double-row arched light bar from Kimpex will help put maximum light on the job. Its 6K color temp is bright, it's fully water sealed in aluminum so it's durable, and this Kimpex kit comes with the full wiring harness and illuminated switch, so it's straightforward to install and there's nothing more needed. Now typically when you mount a light bar you put it up on the roof, but for this job I want to get the light as close to the snowplow as possible, so I've opted to use some of these cool adjustable tube mounts from Kimpex. They come in a variety of tube diameter options and will also swivel the mount so you can get your light bar or fog lights right where you want them without having to drill holes. Pretty slick little mounts, and they're also painted to match so they don't stand out. Another key is removal of the light. Should you want to take the light bar off, you're not left with holes in your roof, both for the mount and the light wire. And on an expensive side-by-side like this one, drilling into the cab can cause some concern. Okay, so we have really good fill lighting up front from this light bar, but I'm going to take this one step further and add a set of fog lights. My reasoning for this is not just to illuminate in front of our plow, but also to light up the sides of the plowing area with maximum coverage. And that is because I always find that when I'm plowing, I'm looking for more light and more perspective. It's usually dark after work, and when the snow blows, you can find yourself off the driveway pretty easily if you don't have enough light. Like the light bar, these are 6K color temp, they come in an IP68 waterproof aluminum housing and have the same 50,000 hour lifespan. I'm opting to use another set of these cool Kimpex tube clamp light mounts, not the factory mount locations, because if I do this, I can plant these fog lights exactly where I want them and send the light out past the sides of the Ranger. A Kimpex T-fitting and harness with switch go in quickly and match the light bar nicely. Now the next thing I've got for you is a bit of a unique product, but when I saw that Kimpex offered one, I knew it would have 1,000 uses around here at Dirt Trax. And that product is the Kimpex portable 2,500 pound winch. I have most certainly found myself stuck with a side-by-side when plowing in the winter and getting a little bit too adventurous. But with the winch up front and holding the plow, it's pretty useless for getting yourself unstuck. So this little beauty is only a couple $100, can be moved from your side-by-side to an ATV or even your truck or tractor, and it only needs access to a battery with gator clamps for 12 volt. It's equipped with 30 feet of steel cable, it's run by a 300 watt 25 amp motor that pulls up to 2,500 pounds. It features both wired as well as wireless controls, and it comes with a mounting bracket to slip over the ball on your trailer hitch, or can be tethered to just about anything you want to pull or pull from, and when I link it with a Kimpex accessory winch kit, it gives me two 2-ton shackles, a 9,000 pound rated snatch block, and two 10,000 pound rated 8-foot straps, so that you can accomplish all kinds of jobs with this fancy portable winch. Both the winch and accessory kit come with nice zippered storage bags as well, so you can keep them clean and out of the elements. When I link up with Kimpex, there's no excuse to not get the job done, do it safely and with confidence. And if I do get a little over-ambitious, I know that I've got all the right equipment to see me through.
Closed captioning of Dirt Trax is sponsored by MBRP Performance Exhaust. Race inspired, trail proven.
It's no secret that since its introduction, all of us here at Dirt Trax have felt very strongly that Polaris's General is the best multi-purpose side-by-side in the industry. Simply put, it plays as hard as a pure sport model, but works as hard as a utility model. And the introduction of the General XP has taken things a step even further by pushing the sport side of this unit to a higher level. No amount of arguing will ever convince me that the General XP can't play every bit as hard as any Razor 1000. As with all great ideas in this industry, the competition has responded by offering competitive models that in some cases have specs that are even more impressive than the General itself. So now the question must be asked, is the General still the best, and if so, why? What sets the General apart as a complete package from its competition? And do we at Dirt Trax still hold it in such a high level of esteem now that it's not the only unit in its class? Before we go any further, I want to give you an overview of the entire General XP lineup. This is the Deluxe, which is actually the base model. From there you move on to the XP 1000 Pursuit Edition and finally up to the XP 1000 Factory Custom Edition. All General XP 1000 models come with the following: a 4,500 pound Polaris winch, sport roof, rear view mirror, sport front bumper, and stage 1 audio from Rockford Fosgate. So what does the Factory Custom get you over the Deluxe that we have here? First, and maybe most importantly, is that it comes standard with the full Ride Command system. Now, our Deluxe does have the Ride Command package with stage 4 audio, but that is not standard and it's an expensive upgrade. On top of Ride Command, the Factory Custom gets you color-matched 15-inch aluminum beadlock wheels, the Rockford Fosgate Stage 4 stereo system, an 11-inch Pro Armor light bar, and a custom steering wheel. Some might consider this unnecessary bling, but if you look at the percentage of side-by-sides on the trail with aftermarket wheels, audio systems, and lighting, and consider that the difference in price between the base model Deluxe and the full jam Factory Custom is only $3,000 US, buying the Factory Custom Edition is a no-brainer. Regardless of what model you choose, all of these goodies would be meaningless if the vehicle they were bolted to wasn't any good. Fortunately and unsurprisingly, that is not the case. The General XP has arched double A-arms front and rear that yield 14 inches of travel at all 4 corners, all of which is damped by a set of downright awesome, fully adjustable Walker Evans Velocity piggyback shocks. In terms of suspension, it really doesn't get much better than this. Ride quality at standard trail speeds is outstanding, as long as you take the time to understand what changing the settings on your shock does to the overall suspension feel, and then set the thing up properly for how and where you ride. Likewise, higher speed riding, even through super rough terrain, is fantastic. The Velocity shocks have a bypass feature that automatically softens and firms the damping as the shock moves through its stroke. Handling is equally as impressive. The power steering is set up excellent, and it does a great job of controlling those 30 by 10 inch wide Pro Armor Crawler XG tires, which themselves do an excellent job gripping pretty much any surface you ask them to. They aren't the best at any one thing, but they're really good at pretty much everything. In my opinion, the General is underpowered in the XP 1000 package. 100 horsepower is perfect for the standard General, but I'd like to see the XP bumped up to the 120 horsepower category. It would really wake this thing up and make it even more fun to drive. With that said, 100 horsepower is more than enough to get the XP 1000 sideways on command, and it's this type of more spirited driving that showcases just how versatile the General XP 1000 really is. Yes, it has a 600-pound capacity dumping cargo box with a one-hand opening tailgate and a 2-inch hitch receiver with a 1,500-pound towing capacity. Clearly, getting work done is not going to be a problem, but unlike most, when the work's done, you don't have to switch vehicles to head out and tear it up with your buddies. Simply dump the cargo out of the box, unhook the trailer, and hit the throttle. Sport side-by-sides might give you a funny look at first, but when you're blowing by them sideways at 60 miles an hour, their looks will change real fast. So is the General XP 1000 still the best sport utility side-by-side in the industry now that it has serious competition, most notably in the form of Yamaha's R-Max? All I can say is this: nobody here at Dirt Trax is any less impressed with the General XP 1000 now that it has credible competition. But we're going to have to put on way more research miles before we can credibly say which one is actually the best.
If you've enjoyed this segment, make sure you hit the like button. And also comment down below because we love hearing from our fans and we try to reply as much as possible. And also, make sure you subscribe because here at Dirt Trax, we've always got cool stuff coming your way.